It doesn't help having the best structure in the world if nobody knows about it. Implementation is key, otherwise the entire effort is wasted. Hey all, welcome back to this series around reward initiatives and the Pay Transparency Directive specifically. This is our third episode and we are now going to share some insights with you. So it's been a few months now since the official implementation happened, and the directive is basically clear to everyone in the overall terms what this will mean. So we've been talking to a large number of companies now in detail in terms of how prepared they are, what challenges they have, and where they need to improve in order to be ready for the directive. We've been talking to all kinds of companies, really. These are primarily first movers, relatively mature companies, but it's anything from big tech companies from the US to car manufacturers in Europe to a lot of engineering companies. So they do not have geography in common. Well, they're all present in Europe, obviously. But they have very different industries and sizes, from 700-800 people to hundreds of thousands of employees. And yet, there are many similarities. And that's what we wanted to share with you today. What challenges do they keep on seeing? And what kind of areas are they actually well prepared for the directive? So I could already now tell you that the biggest overall challenge is regarding implementation and it's regarding communication. And the area where they have most control is around their overall structures and their intentions and their policies. So how do we then look at this? When you have good policies and you have good intentions, why do you keep on having challenges? So that's what we're going to dig into. I'm going to share some of these insights over the next couple of minutes. So first, the challenges. Let's start there. The challenges we see is regarding the fact that many of these companies, and I assume the same with you, have a relatively large number of managers and a relatively large number of people managers. That means they are the ones talking about salary, they're the ones hiring and firing, etc., etc., etc. They drive the company culture. So HR may have some really good policies in place. But what does that matter if their managers do not really understand them, do not really know them, do not really live those values and know the details? Then it's just a number of words on a piece of paper within the HR department. So that's one of the key challenges, is how do you get your good policies to actually live in the organization? What do you do when you have M&A situations? You have new companies entering into the company with their own policies, their own practices, their own salary bands, to be fair, and titles. You start implementing them, but how do you make sure that your values actually go all the way through? The focus in very many companies is on the top positions. Fair or unfair, that's the way it is. Senior managers upwards, director upwards. If it's any system such as an IP system or a grading system from Korn Ferry Hay or from Mercer, what have you, it's the same deal. The biggest and the highest positions, that's where there's full control virtually in most of the companies. But below a certain level, from manager level and below, you very often see that there is no real control in the individual countries. They say they set them free. And that's all good and flexible in the day-to-day operations of the company. Not so good for Pay Transparency Directive. So those kinds of challenges, especially when you look at bigger populations, such as the entire blue-collar population of a company, very often not part of any structure. Yes, they have collective bargaining agreements. Yes, it's structured. But it doesn't mean that it's all clear and good in terms of the directive. So the challenges we see is regarding communication, implementation, and geographies and levels of the employees. Those are the key ones. There are obviously others too. And one is regarding outliers. I'll get into the positives of the lower outliers in a few seconds, but the higher outliers, that is a challenge. It's a challenge which we've seen for years and years. I think even in your own company, you will see you have people managers or others that are way above the market medians or way above your own salary structures. These very high outliers, all kinds of reasons for it, good and bad. Some have salary history, used to have a higher job, kept their pay, It's never been a good idea, and yet we see it everywhere. But now it's an issue, because with the Pay Transparency Directive, that is going to mess with your averages, and that is not good. We also see a challenge. I keep on saying challenge. It is a challenge, all of these things, and that is regarding your promotion process. So you have an individual who does well, and you want to promote this individual. But their salary history typically follows. So instead of thinking, what does this actual position make in the marketplace, or what does this position make in your salary structure, you start looking into, well, let's put a maximum, let's put a cap on 10% salary increase, or something of that nature. This gives challenges, of course, because that means if it is something that's unfair in the old position, that's going to follow this individual throughout their career. So these are the kinds of structural issues we see. Again, the companies really want to do the right thing, but it becomes very much an internal HR process, and it's not developed with the business, and that means that the culture does not necessarily survive the process from the office of the HR department to a different country and the actual implementation in that country. Now for the positives, plenty of good stuff is out there too. First of all, not a single company seems to be against the directive. Yeah, they see it as a bit fair of work to be done, but the principles of the directive everyone seems to buy into. Many companies already implemented many of the things already. They want to have equal pay or pay equity, but it doesn't mean it's there. Some already report on the differences, but it doesn't mean that they have the actions in place to fix it fully. The structures also seem to be broadly in place. The policies are broadly in place. So overall, the companies want to do the right thing, they try to do the right thing, and now there's a legislation that's going to push to make sure you actually get to that place. So we're going to take you through a couple of recommendations now, because we also realize that the companies we talk to are not the average company that we see throughout the EU. These are the first movers, these are the bigger companies. So the issues we see, we will keep on seeing, but I think we could add a couple of things to that. I think number one is regarding your master data. Do you actually have good master data in all countries throughout the European Union? And if you do, where do you store them? Do you have them in global HRIS? You may not need to, but you need to have them structuredly available. And the third is, you may have the data, but do you have a structure regarding this? Do you have a salary structure? Do you have a job architecture? And is it fully implemented? So these are some of the key areas where we think there's going to be more challenges to the vast majority of companies. And then we're going to just, I'm going to give you a couple of potential solutions or highlights as to how you can move about this. So the first one is, regardless of anything else, of course, you have to look into fixing your master data if that is a mess. Otherwise, you're analyzing in blindfolded. So make sure that is in place first. Consider having a simple structure at first in terms of your leveling to make sure at the very least broadly you know what to look at. Otherwise, this will become a super big issue when you start looking into details. Then, in terms of a roadmap, you could start by saying, well, once you have your master data in place and you also have basically some sort of a leveling structure in place, a mini job architecture and also a career path. Once you have that, then you basically need to have some sort of at the very least, base salary structure. Having that, you can then start looking into, okay, so what is your minimum? What is your maximum? What is your target? And making sure that you have a structure for all positions. Then you spot the outliers. Then you know where you have the lower outliers and higher outliers. Once you have that, you can look into your recruitment process. So at the very least, the new people you employ are within your structure. Otherwise, you're just going to continue having the issues you may already have. So look into that, then you might as well start working as if the directive was in place. So start using your structure as the reference instead of asking about their pay history or asking about their pay expectations. Doing that, then have a look at your annual salary review. Consider whether the budget needs to have an element where you look into fixing pay equity issues. And you may even on the side have an auto cycle review. When you spot issues, see if you can fix them already when you identify them. And finally, the promotion process. This is a personal one to me. I think is super important. Make sure you do not punish good internal individuals that you want to promote because of their salary history. So treat people as if they were external candidates. Make sure that when you do promote people, that it's not about how many % increase you actually give them in salary increase, but more what is this position worth and how does that fit with your salary structure. So if you follow these steps, you will at the very least get pretty far, and then we can help you with the rest.